busy to date your avatar. I'm a star. I'm too busy to date your avatar. I'm a star.
One of my favorite clients.
She's too busy to date your avatar.
To date your avatar. For my love, you'll have to wait. I just have no time for a date.
She's too busy to date your avatar.
Media is my métier. I have no time to play. I'm just too busy for love.
She's just too busy for love.
There are guys who seem real nice, but for me they're all on ice. I have no time, I'm just too booked.
She is totally overbooked. You need a new appointment.
I'm too busy to date your avatar. I'm a star.
She is very, very busy.
She's too busy to date your avatar. She's a star.
It is a disaster.
For my love, you'll have to wait. I just have no time for a date.
She's too busy to date your avatar.
Fame is a two-edged sword. Never boring, never bored. No time for boys. No time for men.
No time for romance.
So the ship I captain sails off every day through virtuality, bringing me my destiny.
In other words, commercial icebergs.
Virtual iceberg? He's on my friends list.
It can get tough, 24/7, we're all in it. For some virtual heavenly show must go on. Each week there's a script. We're not a couple on the show, we're hitched. Waited our life to be this busy. Tart and Dexter make her dizzy.
I'm making an appointment with her right now.
Oh, you want a Roman circus? Let's talk. I'm too busy to date your avatar. I'm a star.
A real celebrity.
She's too busy to date your avatar. She's a star.
I adore her.
For my love, you'll have to wait. I just have no time for a date.
She's too busy to
Okay, I'm fading out the song. Hello and welcome. This is the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre, and folks on YouTube, we played the amazing, huge hit song. Do you want to? Too busy. I don't even remember the title of my own song. Too busy to date your avatar. Song I wrote with Pookie Amsterdam and a friend from way back, Samuel Green. And if you're here in the world and you didn't hear it, just look it up on YouTube. Too busy to date your avatar. But we're here to talk about books. We haven't been together for a long time. This is one of the free-for-alls, an informal meeting. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I have a few prompts. I would love to hear what other people think about the topics that I'll bring up around books. I have a few thoughts. Big topic is book anxiety. I brought a few slides as well. Welcome, Jessica. Welcome, Rosie Gray. Look at that. Valencia Sky Dancer, Little Brad, Isabel Vex, Stranger Nightfire, Shyla, Sigamundo, Liz for Paris, Gap, Elian, Antu, and Teddy here at the bar. Hasn't gotten a shave in the last 5 years or so. Did I mention Stranger Nightfire? I guess I did. So, real quick, I want to thank everybody who came to the premiere of my movie, Made in SL, the movie, Made in Second Life, the movie. Brought a little slide here. This was just absolutely overwhelming. If you haven't seen it, please do take a look and leave a comment. I was really overwhelmed with the positive response. I was worried that folks would think this is not representative of Second Life. This was a film for the Second Life birthday that's happening right now, SL20B, and it's a 47-minute film with various aspects in it. And what did I leave out? Absolutely everything, because it's impossible to to kind of portray Second Life in its totality in any type of format, in a time limited format. But I'm very proud of the film, and I just want to say big thanks to everybody who commented and watched it. We had a premiere in World. There was over 200 people watching it at one point on YouTube, and this is from the in-world premiere here. This is an interview with Marianne McCann, who is a big part of the story. She helps us with context. Here's another one um, from the premiere, and uh, and this is actually also the YouTube here. I'm hiding behind a Slang Life magazine, SL Lang Life magazine, which was a an actual real life magazine that a group of Polish Second Life residents made and distributed. I have 3 copies. Came out, I think, every month. This is from 2008. Absolutely a cool idea. It's not happening anymore. There's no physical magazine, as far as I know, dealing with SL. So these are really historical, archaeological artifacts, if you will. Oh, welcome, Water. Please take a seat. So, yeah, again, thanks for coming to the film. And oh yeah, and little teaser for today. We have our next guest is going to be Matt Ruff. Ruff, Ruff. Matt Ruff is, I call him friend of the show because he really loves being here. He wrote a blog post on his blog about us. When Lovecraft Country was made into an HBO show, he actually told HBO they should do a book launch, not a book launch, a launch of the TV show in Second Life. HBO didn't go for that, but very happy to have Matt Ruff back, and he's coming back with a book called Destroyer of Worlds, which is a story from Lovecraft Country. I haven't read it yet. I don't know if it's a prequel or if he plans to, situate different stories within that universe. I mean, Lovecraft Country is really awesome. I actually like some of his other books better, but Lovecraft Country is awesome. Doesn't make it bad just because I prefer some other of his books. And one of them I actually like is a book called 88 Names. Shyla, if you can bring up that book stand. And 88 Names, actually, here we have also a closed book. And I'm going to read a little bit from 88 Names. Now, 88 Names came out in the beginning of the pandemic. And this was actually how we got started with the SL Book Club because we realized, wait a minute, people can't get on their book tours, and so we invited Matt Ruff. I don't know, Shyla, maybe it doesn't work. Let me bring it up. I'll bring it up real quick here.
Yeah,
Just
it's
give me
not
1 second.
working for me, Drex. I
Hmm.
don't know why.
I'll bring it up. And 88 Names is a book, and I'm going to read from it later. Is a book about virtual worlds and VR, and it's Matt Ruff's contribution to the genre of books like Ready Player One and, of course, Snow Crash, which inspired Philip Rosedale to create Second Life. It's a field of books where one would think like, why are you attempting to get into this field when there's already these massive successes? But Matt Ruff has something to contribute, and he's certainly not a person of his stature and his success is not somebody who's riding any type of waves, where it goes like, hey, I'm gonna just knock out some VR book because VR is sort of hip right now. No, not at all. 88 Names is a fantastic contribution. It's a tight thriller, but with a lot of other aspects of virtual reality and virtual worlds that are not, I think, covered with on some of these other famous books. So yeah, Matt Ruff, July 12th, and later at to this hour, I'll be reading from 88 Names. Now now I want to put out a prompt to you guys because I need your opinion, I need your advice, I need your help. This is my TBR stack to be read. This is a little bit random. This is some stuff I recently bought because of recommendations, and so I have real book anxiety. The older I get, the more I get worried that I will not have time to read through important sort of books that everybody should read. And by everybody, I mean people who are obsessed with books. Canon, like Don Quixote. It's actually not in that stack. Don Quixote isn't. But Remembrance of Things Past by Marcel Proust is in the stack, for example. Moby Dick is also not in the stack. But basically, I do want you guys' feedback, and you can do that in voice or in text. How do you deal with the fact, with the reality of this world, where our time is limited and there's some really cool current stuff coming out, but there's also books that have survived hundreds of years and are still reprinted and seem to be important. And I don't mean just because some guy with 5 degrees from academia tells you it's important, just something that survives, like Moby Dick, or um, or even a newer one, Infinite Jest, which I'm obsessed with. How do you deal with the fact that you will never be able to read all of them, or does that not even occur to you? How do you manage your time with these classics versus current titles, contemporary literature? Uh, Thank the Lord Almighty that I don't own a subscription to any type of streaming service. As people know, I don't stop talking about how I don't have any Netflix or HBO subscription. So I already have more time than a person with those subscriptions. Stranger says it pains me. See, Stranger feels my pain, and this we talked about it last time. Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow was 50th anniversary this year. Came out 1973. It's an important book. It's a book, postmodern classic that has stood the test of time. It's something that I need to read. And now, when do I read it? I mean, it's an investment. It's 800 pages. Fear of missing out for books, says Shyla. Well, fear of missing out on important um, knowledge. I mean, there's a reason why these worlds that were created 100, 200 years ago, whatever, or even just 50 years ago, have resonated with people and have not stopped resonating. And as someone who finds inspiration, uh, I mean, books are my food. So, um, let me know how you deal with this in text or in voice. If somebody wants to speak up, just start speaking. Water is asking, let me address this real quick. Water is asking, when is your reading circle on it starting this summer? Now, thank you for reminding me that I promised a reading circle. Here's the thing. Uh, I realized that I do need my alone time in reading and rereading something. Um, and I cannot commit to a reading circle. That my problem is my day job involves actually talking, being very social, conducting interviews and putting stuff together. So I get my energy from solitude, and I don't have enough solitude. I'm realizing that. And so I decided to just pick a book for the summer and go going off social media completely, and just really kind of separating myself into an island with me, the book, and my notebook. So I unfortunately have to say there's not going to be a reading cycle. Yeah, Shyla, I mentioned a reading circle. Rosie says, Rosie Gray here. Rosie says, number one, this is the advice. I stopped doing social media. Very wise, very good, Rosie. That's number one. Absolutely. Number two, I started getting most of my books either from the library or secondhand. But how does number two solve the anxiety over like the sheer volume of stuff that's out there, right? Is that maybe Rosie is saying like the she you don't have it at home, right? So you're not confronted with it. That's actually a good plan. Uh, Rosie, great. Well, see, Rosie, the problem is when I browse my secondhand seller online in Germany, I get 10, 15 books for like $10. So for me that doesn't work. I would need to like have a rule which says only one book per month or something. Vex, I read for relaxation. I don't really feel pressured by pending books so much as look forward to them. Vex, absolutely, and that's how it should be. And I mean, I read for relaxation too. I'm not like reading like, please tell me how to live. No, I want to escape into different worlds. I want to see through different eyes. Absolutely, what Vex is saying is very important. The relaxation part of it is super important. But I realized like uh, I don't know how to get back to that relaxation point when it's so. I mean, if you want to compare it to to Disneyland, like a kid in Disneyland. Oh, I want to go to this ride. I want to go to that ride. I want to go to this ride. It's the basic. It's the human conundrum of making choices, and then choices mean exclusion of other things. Let's see. There's a lot of comments here. Stranger says so many people have never even heard of 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Stranger, well, yeah, that is depressing. I mean, you're talking about the depressing fact that people don't even know the important books or have not even heard of stuff that we feel important or don't even see it as important to read at all. That's a whole nother subject, which is absolutely depressing. Um, yeah, absolutely. But so water, no, no. I will read Gravity's Rainbow, but I, I, I cannot commit to meeting up and discussing it. Um, Gap says my problem is that I don't have a good reading place like a sofa or a chair. I wonder how others are doing it. That is essential. Rosie says you need a good reading place. Absolutely, Gap. This is very important. Thank you for bringing up this subject. It's absolutely important to designate your reading place. This could be in bed. It could be a chair. Uh, there's this guy on YouTube, Leaf by Leaf, Chris Villa. He has an amazing library with an amazing chair, and he talks about the importance. And his setup is sweet, Jesus Christ. But he also talks about like you can do this if you're in a small place, small apartment, even if you only have one chair. You need to designate a time, and you need to designate a place. There's no other way. Um, Little Brett says, it does give me anxiety that I feel like I never read fast enough. See, yeah, there's always another book you want to read. Personally, I always have two books going on, one in audio, one in book form. But Little Brett, thank you for saying this because this is also expressing something that we need to be aware of, because we also live in a world where um, a lot of people will make you feel inadequate because they read so much. So this is very important. This is not it's not some sort of competition, and you see it out there in BookTube. Um, where people go, oh yeah, this is the book haul for April, and they have like 50 books, and you go like, what the hell, right? And it makes you feel inadequate, and that's bullshit. And we need to kind of resist that, and we need to remind ourselves to commit to what we're reading right now. Jessica says most new authors will give you a free novella if you sign up for their mailing list. You can read that, and if you like them, then read more of their work. Jessica, put your mailing list into the chat now. Valencia says public libraries in America pretty nice places to read. Yes, Valencia, absolutely. Thank you. Not only in America, I would say in every country that I've been, libraries are really so incredibly important, and that might be a nice place, Gap, for you to go there. Um, if you're looking for a place, find maybe the library. These are amazing places, and then this is a ritual. If you do this in sort of a ritualistic way, meaning you do it at the same time, if your day job allows. Um, yeah, Vex says, as an aside, Gravity's Rainbow is great, but also neat fun reference to it in Neil Stephenson's Cryptonomicon. Ah, see, Cryptonomicon is on my shelf, also unread. I love Neil Stephenson, although two of my favorite German booktubers completely destroyed him as a hack, and I have to say they have a point. But no, no, Neil Stephenson is great. Let's see here. Stranger, me too. I'm a slow reader. Yeah, and that's important. It's so important that we do stuff at our own pace. Gab says, I feel I'm being unfaithful if I think about another book while I'm reading a book. Yes, Gab, I feel exactly the same way. I feel exactly the same way. But what we're doing here, and by acknowledging this is almost like mindful meditation, right? We're acknowledging that thought, we're acknowledging it, and then we have to practice letting it go, and that will enable us, like a meditative situation, to go deeper into the book that we're reading. And that's the awareness of this, what we're discussing here, the awareness, and I think Little Brett says she feels the same way, will enable us to um, over time it will remind us that we can go deeper into the book that we're on right now, and that's practice. It is everything worthwhile happens with patience and practice and repetition. But the awareness of why we repeat stuff and where we want to go is important. Um, Jessica says sign up for Ryan Cahill's list. Get a book for free. Please put it in the chat. Um, Now, Rosie, I love that one. Looking through the chat. Um, Gap, yeah, but giving up again, this is really a nuanced thing. Every situation is different. Um, I definitely see a problem with the attention economy and our sort of brains that are rewired by social media and other bullshit, that we want this sort of fast, immediate gratification. And some art is not designed that way and shouldn't be designed that way. It's not fast food. It can be, right? Nothing against a fast-paced thriller or genre book that delivers the goods quickly, but also there are things that are hard to absorb, uh, and things they should be hard to absorb, and things that are um, nourishing because they're hard to absorb. I'm not advocating for difficulty uh, and things that are inaccessible just for their own sake. But if it depends what it is, and I am really afraid that we lose the ability to accept things that require a little bit more time to find out what they're about. Water says it exactly. Things that require take time, things that take time to learn, things that require patience and concentration. And this has to do, of course, with how you define art, or reading, or, do you define it like I can't, I'm so spent through my alienating, badly paid job in this capitalist system, and I only have enough energy for something that's sort of like puts me to sleep, or I don't have the energy to go deep into something that is a little bit complex. I just want a bad guy, a good guy. I want some action. I want a little bit of romance. And again, I'm not knocking certain genres, but this is really a problem with how people are forced to live their lives, where they need to, they're coerced in doing work that is basically draining them of energy. And the joy in absorbing knowledge and new things is diminished by that activity that you need in order to keep a roof over your head. So that's not a new thought. Um, yeah, yeah. No, I mean Gap. I don't think Gap falls under the in the category of people who are abandoning because there's not enough gunfights in it. on page one. Um, but I'm saying in general, I think the reason, I mean, this is what David Foster Wallace was talking about also. My hero, writer of Infinite Jest, he was talking about literary fiction and the inability. He was talking specifically about America, about the inability or unwillingness to engage uh, deeply with um, literature and also music. He was talking about, and that was just his assessment that music and reading was just there to kind of distract you, but not really to challenge you, right? And I don't know. I like to be challenged. The Ulysses problem. What is the Ulysses problem, Jessica? Not enough gunfights on page one?
I read one page a year.
Well,
I will finish it.
uh, yeah, one page a year. That's very slow. Yeah.
That is my dream to finish Ulysses.
Welcome, Salva May. Welcome. Water is saying something important. Foucault's pendulum. Umberto Eco. And Water says Foucault's pendulum and how I could not get into it until forever, and then at some point I loved it. Yeah, that's the thing here. What we're talking about is basically something that I don't think I'm alarmist in saying what we're losing collectively as humans in a world of complete being overwhelmed with stuff and losing the war against the attention economy, where everybody is wants our attention all the time. We we are an endangered species, or what the endangered species is our ability to push past an obstacle. And challenging works of literature or paintings or whatever it is, or like video games even, they I don't know, this is just how I look at life. Any nothing that God, this is gonna make me sound like an idiot because I hear already the counter argument, because if I say only something that is um that is difficult is worthwhile, that's not what I'm saying. Sometimes things are very easy and very worthwhile, right? I wouldn't even say from a musician standpoint, for example, if I work on music, it's challenging and something that I worked very hard on is usually uh, worthwhile. But also sometimes a melody just comes along and it's very simple, and the simplest things are also they just flow and it works. But yeah, I guess it's a long way of saying that complexity in art is antithetical to what people demand today, generally speaking, with a painting with a big brush. Anyway, welcome, Salva May. This is the book club. Today is our informal free for all where we have no guest, but we're just discussing whatever comes to mind. And let me just put that up again because Salva's coming. Our next guest is going to be Matt Ruff discussing his book, The Destroyer of Worlds. Let me actually bring that up because I have this also here. We're not going to read from it. Destroyer of Worlds is a book from the Lovecraft Country universe. I have no idea if it's a prequel, a sequel, or whatever it is. We'll see. I'll read it before the show. And we were talking about the stack. And then when I made this picture of my stack, by the way, just saying, I realized there's a whole nother stack on top of my other shelf, which is the Corona Samizdat stack, which is this small publisher, right? Rick Harsh was here, and the guys from America, they're called the Cactus Boots. And he has these little, they're very thick books, but they're pocket books, right? They're small and um, but they're thick. And he sells them for $10, and I just bought them, just bought a lot of them. Just very cool. What is Seva saying? Seva is saying, very interesting, always an issue in this day and age, finding time. Yeah, and Rosie gave the best advice. One piece of the puzzle is to delete all your social media and get off social media, uh, because that is really colonizing your mind. You are giving your time to people who don't deserve it. And by people who don't deserve it, I don't mean your friends on social media because they deserve your time, but they're mediated through owners of social media who are usually fools and uh, and capitalists that are colonizing your mind. So yeah, Seva, yeah, finding time. No, no, absolutely. I mean, surviving um, in the real world on a meager income is hard enough. So um, now, uh, Shyla, you wanted to. I want to talk with Shyla a little bit. Shyla and I were talking pre-show. Unless somebody wants to talk about the stack idea or the stack challenge, maybe one more piece of advice. Um, I would like to bring Shyla up on stage and talk a little bit about a book that she discovered by Pablo Neruda. Sorry, by someone who um, took Pablo Neruda's poetry and made a children's book with illustrations from it, which is very awesome. And we don't know who maybe people don't know who Pablo Neruda is. So
You said, oh, go ahead.
no, Shala, you go ahead. And here, I put up this slide. This is the book that we're talking about, Pablo Neruda, Book of Questions, and we're going to work on getting the author in here. So, but tell us real quick who Pablo Neruda was and why he is problematic. Let's get the baggage out of the way.
Let's just get right to it. Well, he's an amazing poet. I'll talk a little bit about the questions and stuff before we get there. But the person I'd really like to have for you, who I've heard interviews with, is Paloma uh, Valdivia.
Paloma
She's the
Valdivia, she's
illustrator.
the illustrator. Yeah.
She's the illustrator, and this book took, they said, 20 years to translate and illustrate and get it out. But the book of questions was the actual book, was a book of over 300 questions, I think 330, that Pablo Neruda came up with for people to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get all of them on the Kindle if you like. But this is about 70 of them. It was written for kids. And these questions are so relevant, and we'll read a few of them. I made some slides of some of the questions. But they're so relevant that in Chile, where Neruda is from, they learn these questions, some of them to music. And they're not really answerable questions, they're contemplative questions. But where the problem comes in is I did some research on Neruda, and he, like, I guess everyone has some faults, but some of them were very serious. He had a disabled daughter, which he abandoned in Nazi Germany, and she died at the age of 8.
Wait,
And
real quick, Shala. So before we get into some of the, actually, you know what? So Pablo Neruda
yeah,
did some effed up shit.
yes,
But real quick, just to clarify, so I have this slide here with these flowers and a plane and a
yeah,
helicopter flying around. Uh, these questions that are asked here, I think they're too small to read, but what are the questions
I
again? I
can
mean,
read them.
how do the questions relate to Pablo Neruda's work? That I'm not sure I
Well,
understand that.
it was his last work, and it was actually published after his death, about a year after his death. Um,
1973. Mm-hmm.
1973, and this, of course, was published much later. And the one that you were on, Drax, the slide before,
Oh, let's see
I'll
that
show
before. Yeah,
you a
here
question.
we go.
Why don't they teach helicopters how to draw honey from the sun? If flies produced honey, would they offend the bees? Why don't those immense airplanes fly side by side with their children. And that's kind of how these questions go. Some of them are really deep, but you can see how they might appeal to a child, which is what this is. This is a book for children, but they also appeal to me from just the thought provoking nature. In fact, I have this book, and I'm using some of these questions for quiet time when I take my quiet times throughout the day. Do you have another slide there? I'll read
This
some more.
is really these questions that you just read. This is so brilliant because what to me what they show is they open up they open up a child's mind. A child mind's actually a child's mind is still open because that's why these questions resonate. And I can see adults when they read this. I always make my dad out to be the bad guy. He would read these questions and go like, "What kind of waste of time are these stupid questions?" While when, I interact with a lot of kids here in the neighborhood because, they know the dog, and then I talk to them. There's this boy, he always goes to school in the morning. He always looks really depressed, and I go like, "Dude, don't be depressed. I know school really sucks." And he has really hilarious ideas. Then I make up stories about Gustav flying to space, and he comes up with really imaginative ideas. And I had to think of him and some of these other kids that are open, and these questions are going to, like, they're the catalyst for stories and worlds, while most adults go like, what kind of, that's weird, right?
Yes, I've used them twice now for poetry prompts
Hmm.
uh, to inspire me to write poetry. I like them. This one on this page that's up there um, is the questions, and she has them both in the original uh, uh, Spanish, and then she has them in English. So here is, what do you call a flower that flits from bird to bird? Which birds dictate the order of the flock while it flies? And I think there's one more there, Drax.
Hmm.
And
This one.
I like that picture too. Yeah, that's really
Wow.
beautiful. And there's only one question on this page. It's, where does the rainbow end? In your soul or on the horizon? So that's
Wow.
a sampling um, of the questions, and I'm quite impressed by how this was all put together. But there are serious flaws with Neruda, and um, it leaves me a bit conflicted. I think his poetry, and this is a little unlike much of his poetry. His poetry is very romantic, and I think it gives off this view that he was this deeply romantic, um, sensuous fellow, and that may very well be true. But um, he, like I said, he left behind a daughter, he left behind wives, and when he fled Germany, um, I and I don't think this is known by a lot of people, and so I have to admit he does really good work.
So we have in Pablo
He's
Neruda somebody who was critically acclaimed, and who in
yes,
his work seemed to be someone who really understood the human condition and the nature of the big, things like love and such. But he turns out that in real life he was, to put it mildly, kind of a prick. Uh, and at worst, he was really kind of like like a a narcissist who didn't care about other people. So how do you reconcile this, Shyla? The art and the artist. Uh-oh.
yeah. I think it's hard, and I think I've said before, it's very personal. Where when people decide, when people decide they can or cannot. But I mean, in poetry, almost every poet I've looked at,
Is a
you
prick.
know, Well, not a
Wait,
prick,
but
but
Seva is saying something interesting. Seva says, I don't find that a detractor from the work personally. Says being flawed is part of the human condition. I think that's a great point. Shyla, please respond because maybe the fact that they artists are maybe more attuned with the conflicting nature and their flawed parts. Maybe that's why they can tap into it and create this beautiful art better than others.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, um, yeah, I'm trying to think of how to respond to that, but I think it is hard. Well, it is hard to know because there are people
Well,
that,
I left my daughter to be executed by the
yeah,
Nazis, but my poetry is very romantic.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how that sorts itself out, and the rest of the time they live and act out of fear. That's interesting, Valencia. Yeah, I
Valencia
think
says
that's
some. Let me read it. Sometimes people art is their true self, and the rest of the time they live and act out of fear. Yeah, like we all do. I mean, I think that's why artists, they for, for whatever they are, well, they're brave enough to use this outlet, or sometimes they have that outlet, and but they may just live in the same type of fear that we all live. Rosie says it's the same question with movie makers and musicians. Let me quickly respond to Rosie because Shyla and I talked about this before the stream. That's a good point with filmmakers and musicians. My point, and I think I made this when I pissed some people off when I said that I got rid of J.K. Rowling's books because she pisses me off. Not as a, I didn't go on the street and protest her stupid anti-LGBTQ crap, but I got rid of the books because I don't want to look at them and get reminded of that. Here's a very rich woman punching down on very vulnerable populations. But what Rosie is saying with musicians, as a big music fan, for me, I kind of forgive musicians easier when they're pricks because uh, to me, an author, I don't know. I want my authors to be actually fairly, inspirational and holier than thou because I feel they have more insight into the human condition than musicians have. I'm basically saying that from a musician, I use this. Some musicians are very apolitical and as a very political person I can forgive them as long as they play their instruments well. I would like to be them, like like Frank Zappa. I like those musicians better who are have an opinion and voice that opinion and put it into their art, but I don't have to. But for a author and a poet, I want them to be more attuned to this. Now with filmmakers, good question. I also demand of them to be attuned to, uh, well, I mean, I don't know where you draw the line. I mean, we were talking about Mel Gibson. I mean, Mel Gibson is actually an easy case because he is really a total a-hole, anti-Semite, and everything on top of it. So that's easy. Um, yeah, Rosie, the question is, I don't know. The lower on the stack are for me musicians for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah.
well, I think that's just it. Although I think,
It also depends, I guess, what
for
they
me,
do.
yeah, what they
What's
do,
the what's the
I'm
nature
a,
of their dickishness? Are they murderers? Oh, Harvey Weinstein. Okay, great example here. Harvey Weinstein is a monster. He's
right.
a monster. But he's not a movie maker. He's a producer. I make a huge distinction between that. Not saying Harvey Weinstein had no talents, but he was not the artistic talent. I think we're talking here about the artistic talent. Weinstein was important because he saw movies. He gave movies a chance who maybe otherwise wouldn't have a chance, and but he was not the maker of these movies. I'm sorry. I know people will disagree with me. They will say, well, he was privy on script rewrites and stuff like that. But nah, he was really not the creative force behind the movies. He was greenlighting them. That's very different.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it does, at least for me, and I think this is very personal, but it is
Woody
harder
Allen,
for
yeah.
me to
Woody Allen.
reconcile.
I'm sorry, Shala. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the chat.
I know.
Let me interrupt you one more time, then I'll shut up. Roman Polanski and Woody Allen, those are actually much better examples. Absolutely. This is very
Yeah.
problematic. Woody Allen is extremely problematic. That was to me, that is almost like the Pablo Neruda maybe for Shyla, because Woody Allen, I really did like his films, and I can't watch him. He's completely dead to me. Roman Polanski also did some terrible shit, but I was never a big like aficionado. But Shyla, now go ahead. I won't interrupt you again.
Oh, I think that's why I say it's very personal. It's very personal what we decide uh, to 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 read or not read, and I think that for me, with poets, being a poet, it's much more conflicting for me,
Yeah.
and I think you mentioned music, and you're a musician, and I wonder if that's maybe part of the relationship. There is, I have a love of poetry, and then when I find a poet that really has done something uh, completely inhumane, it causes me trouble, and I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what to do. This I justified. There's always rationalization and justification going on, and this one I justified because I'm supporting the people who put this together, and not the author themselves.
Right. And in other words, if this illustrated children's book would have been done in collaboration, if Pablo Neruda would have still been alive, you would feel not so great about it. That gives you a little distance. Is that right, Shyla? That this book was done after he passed, and the driving force was kind of the illustrator, maybe? Is that makes it more palatable for you?
Yeah, I
It's
think
almost if
I
somebody
think
would,
so.
if somebody with integrity would shoot a movie based on a Woody Allen script. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I wonder. Right, I can't say what I would do, but I wonder how I would feel about it then.
Hmm. It's interesting. I want to clarify that in terms of like when I say I forgive musicians their lack of political sophistication, there's of course also let's just say if a musician or a composer or somebody collaborated with the Nazis during World War II, that is also to me unforgivable. When many had to flee, and did flee, or others were murdered. Um, so there's of course a sliding scale in severity. What I meant
Yes,
was that when you talk about popular music, I very much prefer musicians like Frank Zappa, who took a stance on current politics versus uh, versus people who are a little bit, disinterested. Prime example that I always use is James Hetfield of Metallica being interviewed on Fresh Air during the Iraq War, and Terry Gross asks him, "Well, what just came out now, that they waterboard the prisoners and they use music, Sesame Street and Metallica. How do you feel about that? Your music is being used to torture these prisoners." And he said something like, "Well, if it's for the freedom of the country, that's fine." So I mean, that's I'm a huge Metallica fan. James Hetfield was a big influence, but I forgive him that. That's a dumb answer, but that's what I mean. I'm almost like, okay, James, your rhythm guitar playing at the age where you're at, slightly over 60, is still better than I ever was, and I appreciate that. Just don't comment on just don't comment on the Iraq war or any war. Let Roger Waters talk about that. I know now I'm gonna hate mail mentioning Roger Waters, who I much prefer, the Roger Waterses and the Frank Zappas over the James Hetfields. But anyway, Thank you,
Well,
Shyla. Yeah, go ahead.
can I say just one thing
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that, which I think he said it may not have been smart for one, but the question is, does he believe that the torture is okay, and therefore he's happy to donate his music to that? And I
Yes.
think it makes it different than if I think, well, he he probably doesn't mean that. He's just doesn't, he's not thinking straight.
Well, it was also really at the time still it was an answer. Again, this was in a climate of patriotism still, where it was really waning. When Abu Ghraib came out, then sort of you saw the cracks. But I have to acknowledge that it was still a time where you're either with us or against us kind of bullshit type of thing. Where it was in that sense it was kind of also a diplomatic answer, I guess, from like a public per- uh, public personality standpoint. So I don't know what I would have said. I mean, at the time there were very very few celebrities. What happened to the Dixie Chicks and people like that. We also have to keep that in context. I mean, their CDs were burned. So,
Yeah. That's all I had. I'll leave it to you
all
whether
right.
to invest or not. But yeah, thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Shyla. Any other comments towards separating artist from the art? It's wonderful that Sava May has not teleported out of here yet, although I mentioned that I got rid of my J.K. Rowling books, which last time prompted a new visitor to immediately leave because she felt I was crazy and overreacting. Let's see, let's read the chat. Um, Sava says, I would not destroy, remove, or eradicate one piece of work because the creator does not align with my morals or my political position. I might choose not to read, watch, or enjoy it. However, thank you, Shiloh. Super interesting. Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Stranger says, any real? Is that the beginning or the end of a sentence, Stranger? Continue. Um, End. Any real. So that's the end of the sentence. Oh, here we go. Roger Waters strikes me as just about only person in the commercial music business with any real integrity. Yeah, I think there are a few others, but Roger Waters is also he comes from a political. He's always been a political person. I mean, his own life story is very interesting. Again, some musicians they never saw that as part of their, for lack of a better word, let's call it brand. But Roger Waters always saw music as a vehicle to transport these important things. I mean that's what the wall is all about. It's all about authoritarianism and um, let's see here, Gap. I don't mind homophobia in some mainstream films like The Naked Gun because it's some part of general jokishness about some issues. But I hate it when it comes from Mel Gibson because it's homophobia of a totally different kind. I agree, Gab, and also I need to say that certain movie also with comedy, some comedy just doesn't age well, and that's okay. We can acknowledge that, right? I sometimes feel it's ridiculous when certain famous comedians pretend they're being canceled. Well, all of a sudden, we can't make these jokes anymore. That's what culture does. Culture, hopefully, evolves and certain questions are renegotiated, and that's super super important. So some of these comedians that are complaining, that's kind of ridiculous to me. um and that's just the nature of comedy. um Valencia says, people in the government in Florida trying to ban books. Cancel culture is equivalent to those book burners. We should do an entire show on cancel culture. We had an amazing author on Mitho Sanyal who wrote a book, Identity, it's actually called. It's also available in English. There's a German author. It's incredible. That's one of the best books I've read last year or this year. Identity, Mitho Sanyal. Maybe somebody can put the link in there. Please look it up because please check out this book. And this talks about cancel culture in a very nuanced way. Um, because this term is thrown around by some nefarious actors, I always respond with, cancel culture is real when a low-level worker with bad pay and absolutely no power of an agency over their employment in other parts of life gets fired without any compensation. That to me is canceling someone. Cancel culture is not Dave Chappelle, who is a multimillionaire, having to adjust a little bit of his act. That's not cancel culture. These people have a huge platform, and they need to reflect what's going on in the culture. So, and I say this as a Dave Chappelle fan, but somebody who does not appreciate his portraying himself as a victim of cancel culture. He's not canceled. He has a huge platform. Last time I checked, he gets specials and he makes good money. So somebody's somebody's mic just
I
came
wouldn't
on.
call it cancel culture when people are being criticized for what
Yes.
they say.
Thank
But
you,
when
stranger.
people are trying to have them kicked off the internet and all, which happens, that is certainly canceled.
Yeah,
There's people I can't stand, but I strongly hold for their freedom of speech and right to be on YouTube or be on Twitter or whatever. It's like,
yeah, but we
But
need
don't I
to.
have a right not to watch?
But
of
hold on.
course. Of
There's two
course,
things.
exactly. That's how you handle it. You don't watch, but you don't insist no one else in the world gets to hear that person's viewpoint.
But stranger is saying two very important things. Number one, sometimes when people say, "Oh, I'm canceled in cancel culture," no, you acted like a dick and you're being called out for it. Deal with it, okay? So that's number one. But the other thing is very important. We need to make a distinction between a private platform like YouTube or any other platform and the government. So free speech is super important, no doubt about it. But when you are being demonetized on YouTube or you're banned on Twitter, this has nothing to do with free speech. This is a capitalist uh, operation that feels uh, we don't want you here because of whatever the reason, ideological, advertisers don't feel good, whatever. So we really need to be able to hold these two things into our in our head that free speech and how you conduct yourself on a privately held platform. I mean, me as a commie, as a dirty commie, I I like YouTube, but certainly don't like the fact that it's a private corporation that is almost a monopoly and can do whatever they want when I say something that I think is important. For example, when I wanted to buy ads for my movie, Virtual Cultures in Pandemic Times, I wanted to buy a bunch of Google ads to advertise my tiny little movie, and they declined it. Why? Because pandemic was in the title. Now, is that cancel culture? No. It's a private corporation who feels, oh, we don't
It's
want
a
to.
private corporation being an asshole. You
Yes.
can still, yeah, the fact that you own a corporation doesn't mean you don't have your own morality and decency to be, treat
Um,
people
well, I
properly.
think it's
It's,
I I
and
think
what's
it's
more, we now know the government was putting undue pressure on these platforms to cancel what the government wanted canceled. That's come out very strongly and obviously.
yeah, I'm not here to defend government censorship or I'm not here to defend manufacturing consent and things like that. But let's just say when somebody believes that a private corporation, that you're disappointed in a private corporation's decision because of their moral stance, then I think you're a fool. Why would a private corporation does not have any moral stance other than maximizing profit? I mean, if that's reality. And if you kind of assume that they have any type of adherence to any type of moral standard, that's absurd. That's absurd. I'm not saying that you said that, stranger. I'm just saying in general because people, oh, why is YouTube is so mean to me. I'm not saying that you said that, but I hear people complaining about this. Oh, how can they do that? Well, because you're not their priority. Their priority is to maximize profit. End of story. And you're playing on their playground, and that's why it's so important to create structures where there's an equal playing field.
You're actually bringing up what's wrong with capitalism because they shouldn't even be capitalistic
Correct.
enterprises. They should be
Absolutely.
public utilities.
Absolutely. 100%
Then
stranger.
we wouldn't
That's
have this
yep,
problem. But yeah,
stranger. That is exactly the problem because everybody's, oh, YouTube is democratizing. Yes, to a certain degree, but no, they should be public utilities. They should be governed in a democracy. It should be a completely different structure. Seva says, I thought it was regarding young children. I don't think so. Taxpayers should have to pay for the would have to pay for the service. Yeah, absolutely. Why not? So, oh God, we're out of time, and I wanted to read from Matt Ruff, but I need to go to bed because I'm dead. Valencia says, oh gosh. Why, oh gosh? Why, oh gosh? If you have oh, you didn't wear me out. No, no, I wore myself out. I did an interview before for an SLTV station, and um, yeah, Seva. See, this is interesting. Seva says, but see, this is the trajectory of capitalist enterprises, completely understandably. Seva says, I miss YouTube how it was in the beginning, gritty home videos and people talking about all sorts for no money. Absolutely. And now we're basically, exactly. I mean, you were talking, Seva, this could be applied to the early days of the internet as well. But very quickly, the internet basically became like, you know, it's worse than the Hollywood studio system. The freedom is all gone. The freedom is only here in Second Life. Okay, let me end with this. Valencia is running out the door. Why? She said my mouse slipped. Any last words by anybody? And people, please feel free to hang out. Two things. We're going to move to a monthly show only. I said it many times. But I can't do the weekly anymore. It's insane. It's awesome, but it's just too much work. Oh, hello, Caddy. Rosca is here. So we're moving to a monthly show, and we're doing the first Wednesday of the month. Um, and you can see that on the calendar. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So the next guest again is Matt Ruff. Don't miss it. Matt is awesome, wonderful conversationalist, huge name in the world of books, very successful, extremely successful, and we only have huge successful people here. No, we don't. We also have like Dwight Schrute once said, "Is Second Life a game?" He was asked, and he said, "No, Second Life is not a game. It's a multi-user virtual environment. There are no points, no scores, there are no winners, there are no losers."
Oh, they're losers, all right.
Shaila, thank you for the subtitles of the movie, and actually the auto translate to other languages is very good. And I think it's because you already, the YouTube auto translate, I think obviously takes sort of the handmade meticulous subtitles that you made, and that's uses at the basis for the translation. Okay, thank you very much. Go feed your Zuby babies. If you haven't watched Second Life the movie, don't admit it, just watch it. Because I cannot be your friend anymore. Um, let's see, maybe I should put the link in here. Should I? I'm assuming everybody watched it.
The link to the movie?
Yeah, I put it here.
Okay.
Um, and read a good book, and thank you guys for coming. It's very enjoyable, and I wish I had the bandwidth to do this weekly, but work-life balance. And Water, I apologize for. I mean, Water, I'll send you a private message later or tomorrow. but I cannot commit to a reading circle really because I feel very strongly the need to be alone with whatever book I choose. I do want to read Gravity's Rainbow, but now I'm gravitating towards rereading Infinite Jest before that, and really keeping it to myself and putting the thoughts into a journal. There's actually a lot of really cool, like on some of these like Redbubble, these sites with like homemade stuff, and Etsy also. There's like notebooks with like custom covers from Infinite Jest and like fan art and stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna reward myself with buying yet another copy and and then a notebook with like fan art, and then I'm just gonna put notes in there without any pressure to be, you understand Water? I know Water understands. Water always pretends he's so, only cares about fish and swimming in the ocean. But I think Water is a very deep individual, right, Valencia? Yeah, he's cute, but he's also very deep. Coffee Shop of Kabul by little Deborah Rodriguez. I heard about that. I'm gonna look it up and put it on the stack. Isabel, that sounds good. And I'm gonna play us out on the chat. Should I play us out with a tune on the YouTube? What tune should I play us out? Maybe Too Busy to Date Your Avatar. Have you ever? Okay, I'm falling asleep. Good night, everybody. Goodbye.
24/7, we're all in it for some virtual heavenly show must go on each week as a script. We're not a couple on the show we're hitched. Waited our life to be this busy. Tarzan Dexter make her dizzy.
I'm making an appointment with her right now.
Oh, you want a Roman circus? Let's talk. I'm too busy to date your avatar. I'm a star.
A real celebrity.
She's too busy to date your avatar. She's a star.
I adore her.
For my love, you'll have to wait. I just have no time for a date.
She's too busy to date your avatar. Do you want to date her avatar? She's a star. Do you want to date her avatar? She's gone too far, and that's for sure.
I'm too busy to date your avatar. I'm a star.
She needs time to unwind.
She's too busy to date your avatar. She's a star.
Some quality time.
For my love, you'll have to wait. I just have no time for a date. She's too busy to date your avatar.
Ah, the blank wall. The tabula rasa. I'm projecting myself on that wall right behind you, Pookie. It is the tabula rasa. Let your mind go free. Oh, Pookie, it makes me so happy to see you dance. How about a nice glass of Riesling? You know, this might be destiny.